The Pediatric Lounge, a podcast taking you behind the door of the physician's lounge to get a deeper insight into just what docs are talking about today. From the clinically profound to the wonderfully routine and everything in between.
As the year comes to an end, we shri some of the clips from 2024. George and I can't tell you how much we love pediatricians and how proud we are of our colleagues around the world. We have persons from Gereige, Peru, Mexico, Ecuador, Colombia, Lebanon, Chicago, D.C., New York, Hawaii, Vermont, Chicago, Miami, Arizona, Michigan, Philadelphia, and we all care for children with love and a passion to change the world. Susan, why is it so difficult to implement change in a pediatric practice? They say it takes about 17 years from the point that we know we should do something different to the time that it actually starts being done in the offices.
That is true. I was actually doing some reading about looking online to see where the evidence was that came from. But yes, that is the number that's thrown out. But it's so difficult to make change as pediatricians because we're human and our brains hate change as humans. They hate change. And what our brains do instead of seeking change is they hang on to habits, right? And it's like this belief that what we've always done is going to continue to work. And brains hang on to those habits, even when the evidence says otherwise, this is not going to work. And with that, we all have, I think, experiences we can think of personally, but our daily lives are driven by habits. And those habits really deal with what we think of as like our low risk tasks, things that we do all day long that we don't even notice because it's just driven by our habits. And so if you think about pediatricians and pediatric practices, what we've done is we've created habits in our practices as pediatrician leaders or maybe individuals that started our own independent practices. Then we create a culture that's based on those habits. And we then hire people who align with that culture based on habits. And so what happens is that physician, pediatrician, and staff, we just go through our daily lives and our work in our offices relying on those habits. But there's, I think, more to it. And that's, think about our training, right? Think about our training as physicians in medical school and just our training as pediatricians. Like, we're educated and conditioned to minimize risk, right? That's a huge part of our training in pediatrics. So when you take all of those things together, it's really no wonder that it's incredibly hard for people to make change in their office.
That's why I have in my email signature, I don't know if you guys have ever read it, the most dangerous phrase in the medical practice language is, we've always done it this way.
We always ask the same question of our guests. Why did you become a pediatrician?
You know, I think a virtuous and rather symbolic commitment, and that be growing up in the 60s, I was looking for something I could do that would be of value, that would make this world a better place. And I went through a lot of artistic explorations and came to realize that there was more to learn before I could really make a good contribution back, and becoming a physician might be an effective way to do that. And I came to realize also that there was no massive way to do anything of meaning, but if I could touch one individual at a time and help them find their way to be the best they could be, then I made a good contribution to the future of our world. And that's really what has driven me, as many pediatricians were much more altruist than necessarily realized.
Thank you. Dr. Rani, tell me more about this phenomenal hospital called Nicholas Children's down there in Miami, Florida.
Nicholas Children's Hospital is formerly, some people know it as Miami Children's Hospital, historically. It's a freestanding children's hospital, around 300 beds, all pediatrics. It's a nonprofit. Actually, in 2025, the hospital will celebrate its 75th anniversary, so next year. So it's been in existence that long. And actually, from a medical education standpoint, it was accredited the very first time by ACGME as a sponsoring institution or as a teaching hospital back in 1962. So it's been teaching generations of pediatricians over the years, and it's one of three freestanding children's hospitals in Florida, in the state of Florida.
For those of you that don't know Dr. Cher, she's a pediatrician. She's the chief wellness officer at Allied Physician Group, and she's a certified executive and life coach. She's also the founder of Sheer Coaching. Jennifer, I think we mostly call you Jen, right?
Jen, yeah.
Jen, we always start the show with the same question. Why did you become a pediatrician?
So I actually became a pediatrician, not really with as much of an intention as most of my colleagues. A lot of pediatricians, it's like a burning desire for them. When I went through all of my rotations, I liked most of them. And my two favorites were OB and peds. I think I probably would have done family medicine if I lived in an area where it was more of I liked the whole family, the women's health, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I was going to let peds and OB be a toss-up and let the match decide. And then I just decided if I could do something that's not 24/7 by nature, I may as well choose peds over OB. And that was it. I just said, I'll go for peds. I don't have any regrets, but I do really like taking care of the moms as well as the babies.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I think there's a couple important things about being what I am now, a third generation pediatrician. My dad grew up in New York with my grandfather, ended up going to medical school at NYU, and then left residency and went to Colorado. So I was born and raised in Colorado, and my dad became a prominent pediatrician in Colorado. So I left and I came to the East and I never went back. So we both stayed away from our elders to some extent. I liked Hopkins. I did rank CHOP and Cincinnati, like both of them very much, but ranked Hopkins first, mostly because of the people. And one of the great people I interviewed with was Dr. Peter Rowe, who does a lot of the chronic fatigue work now and is just, if I'm smart, he's uber smart. He was incredible. That really brought me there. And we had a great class. And unlike most classes that go through Hopkins, my residency year, most of us went as general pediatrics.
Oh, well, and Catherine DeAngelis and Oski were there at that time?
Frank had just died. I missed him. Kathy DeAngelis was transitioning to Chicago, but Janet Serwent was there and she was fantastic. And there were a lot of great mentors and it was a great program.
It's a powerhouse. It's been a powerhouse for 50 years plus.
Yeah, for sure.
And other than your father and your grandfather being pediatricians, why did you become a pediatrician?
I think, according to my mom, when I was 6, I decided to be a pediatrician. I'm not sure if I remember that, but at least in high school, I definitely liked sciences. I liked doing community service work and figured, oh, this is cool. I could do this. And I really was attracted to speaking Spanish. So did a summer abroad program in Costa Rica where we spent a month down there at a school. And after that became pretty fluent and decided this makes sense. I'm going to be a Spanish-speaking doctor.
So let me put that in perspective. So the CDC, just about a week ago, put out an advisory to all basically healthcare professionals saying, be aware of the fact that there are measles outbreaks. So there have been outbreaks in Philadelphia that we had just a few weeks ago. Delaware and New Jersey in 2022, there was a big outbreak in Columbus, Ohio. So what's that? Give me a few minutes. I'm going to answer this question. Let's go back to the beginning. The first vaccine was in 1963. The last best vaccine was in 1968. But before those vaccines, to put this in perspective, every year there were 3 to 4 million cases of measles in this country. There were about 50,000 hospitalizations and 500 deaths. And when people died, they died of pneumonia and they died of dehydration and less commonly of encephalitis. So now we had a vaccine. And then in 1971, we combined that vaccine with the mumps and rubella vaccine.
So what's going on in the pediatric private practice world? Anything cool or distressing?
I don't want to cost you future guests or sponsors, but you two know this. The boogeyman in this business right now is private equity, and they are causing trouble. And I am not going to go into details because of what I believe will be soon pending lawsuits, not by us, but just by other people. Some of the stuff is starting to unravel. Now, I'm not so naive to think that it's all going to unravel and things are going to go back to the way they were. It's not. It's just that the PE people have run out of places to spend their money, so they've shown up where we are. I will say this: one of the vendors at PMI, because the PE guys were all over PMI. One of the vendors was the first one I ever heard to sit straight up to tell the truth at the beginning. I had 2 clients or 2 people I know. One was a client, one wasn't. Tell me they went to talk to the guy at the booth, and he said, "Our goal is to buy and network as many pediatric practices as possible, and then in 7 years, sell them to an insurance company."
Wow.
It's like, oh, you said the quiet part out loud. You're not supposed to tell people that. And so I in my semi-libertarian worldview, you know what? At least he's honest. He's telling you what the plan is. And if you don't have a succession plan and you have your only options are to close the practice or sell to the hospital, who you know is going to suck, take the money from these guys. At least it's one of the things I don't like about PE is just that it's painting a picture of nirvana over here when that's really that's not their goal. Their goal is private equity firms. Their goal is not to help children. Their goal is not to take care of kids. Their goal is to make money. And I have a problem with that. So great, but just be honest about it.
Anyhow, I have something more important to ask you. How is baby George?
Oh, the best. Oh my gosh. He is 3 weeks old. He's gained 2 pounds since birth. He is eating like a champ. And I just get this incredible baby fix. I call it baby zen. I just can hold him and look at him for 2 hours, literally. Mm-hmm. And it is like the best. And the other really lovely thing is seeing my daughter be a parent. She's just good, and she and her husband are just both chill, and they just love this baby. They waited 4 years for him. He is very special. And my mother is I love the name George. It's just the best.
Has your mother been able to come visit yet?
Not yet. My dad broke his hip, so he's doing rehab and can't really travel yet. Yeah, so there's that. But yeah, I've got the ends of the spectrum. I've got 2 parents that are in their 90s, and then this lovely little baby at the beginning. So it's an interesting life trajectory.
Oh, is he going to be a patient at Rambling Roads?
He already is. Yeah, it's really nice. Several of my partners, but Randy Dyke has seen him a couple times, and it's just really fun. Because my daughter's known him, and so it's lovely.
Oh, how amazing. I'm so glad you have that in your life.
Yeah, me too.
Now, what was the genius of Michigan State Medical School?
It was born in the late 60s. So it's a young medical school. Excuse me. It's a young medical school, but they conceived of it as this kind of a place to develop people that wanted to go into primary care. So instead of having clinical rotations in a big university hospital, they farmed us out to community programs. And so they established these hubs all over Michigan. So there was Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Saginaw, Flint. And then they had a clinic up in the UP, so in Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And our class was 100. It was the first class. We had 51 women. And so that was a milestone. And they sent us, so in groups of about 20. And we worked in community settings. And of my class, lots of people went into primary care, internal medicine, peds, and many stayed in the community. And I think that was the hope. We have also a big emergency medicine residency. So there were a couple people that stayed in that. And I think it was an interesting conception. The other was the style of teaching. They had track 1 and track 2. And track 1 was traditional lecture, learn, take a test. And track 2 was small group, and they did it around problem-focused groups. So we'd have one on jaundice, and you would learn everything about jaundice, and from microbiology, the physiology, and you did it in a small group study. And I chose that because I had been an undergrad at Michigan State, and I was a physiology major. And a lot of the professors that taught at the medical school also taught at Michigan State. So I thought, I'll try this other learning style. Still did some things in the traditional way, like anatomy and things like that. But it was an interesting learning concept. I don't think that exists anymore. I'm far from that. But yeah, so that's how I came to be a physician, was through that program.
Welcome to the show. It's good to see you again.
Hi, thank you.
We always ask the same question. Why did you become a pediatrician?
I love taking care of kids and families. I know that's the go-to boilerplate answer, but it just is true for me. Even when I was a young kid, volunteering at my church, these kinds of things, always was drawn to how fun it was to play with kids and help them learn and all of those kinds of things. And did a lot of work with my parents in our church, like volunteering with the preschool kids and those kinds of things. And to this day, that's still one of my favorite ages to interact with. And then as I figured out, like, how do I put this with some of my other interests in science and math and those kinds of things, going to medical school to become a pediatrician made sense. I always tell folks I wanted to be a pediatrician before I knew that meant I had to go to medical school. I went to medical school with the idea that I was probably going to be a pediatrician, like 95% chance that was where I was headed. I tried to keep an open mind as I went through the first few years and into the third year to see, was there something else that I want to do? Thought a little bit about OBGYN and the babies and maybe family medicine as a way to do all of that. And then really just came all the way back around to say pediatrics is where I want to be. We have a ton of fun and the hospitals are painted pretty and colorful. It's a nice place to work. Most people who work with kids are happy, friendly folks. And it was just a nice place for me to work and also to get to do the work that I love to do, which is working with kids, keeping them healthy, but also stepping into those with those families and going on the journey with them to help them make sure that they have the information that they need to raise happy, healthy kids, which is what we all want.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show, to the podcast. I'm going to call you Dr. Sharps because I love that on your Instagram handle. Why did you become a pediatrician?
It's something that I had in my heart. When you do stuff and you always want to help people, and kids, Boy Scouts, there's always that feeling of helping. When I was probably around 3 or 4 years of age, my mom was actually carrying me and walking down the stairs, and we fell together. I was the last couple of stairs. Then I flew over and had a huge chipotle, like a huge bruise in my head, and I was bleeding. And my mom, of course, was crying, and it was like a whole mess. Then my mother actually brought me to my pediatrician, and the pediatrician actually had a lollipop in his hand. And I started seeing the lollipop coming to my face. And I was like, okay, at least, yes, I have a huge bruise and bleed, though I'm all messy and whatever, but at least I'm going to get a lollipop. But suddenly, that lollipop actually was given to my mom. And I went, wait, I'm the patient. You don't see the bleeding. I'm all bruised up. You see the blood on the shirt. And I understood something, that pediatricians not only take care of the kid, but they take care of the family. And when you have that investment on the family, on the core part, because the pediatrician understood that if my mom was okay, I will be amazingly okay. Then that unity of what a pediatrician actually offers, it's hope, not only for the first 20 years, but actually for the rest of our lives as humans. Then a good pediatrician is virtually someone that invests their entire career making sure that humans continue to do and have the most opportunities to be healthy, well, and actually achieve their dreams. And that's what actually my pediatrician showed me at that moment. And he was old school. He actually brought me, he will actually do home visits. He will come and call at 3 a.m. and he will do even vaccines. He did absolutely everything by himself. And I saw that as an opportunity to give back. Then, and I'm going to tell you a secret. I also, at the time that I needed to choose path, I was between pediatrics and geriatrics. And there's
It's like the same. It's like this. Dr. Minnie, why did you become a pediatrician?
I was always good with kids and enjoyed children, just being with them, playing with them. I took care of family members growing up, but I was also sick. I was ill as a child, as an infant. So I think growing up with that experience also gave me an added layer of interest and commitment to working with children.
And who was, I don't know if I'm saying the name is, but who is Dr. Kundan Giri?
He is retired now. I practiced with him. We practiced together for a good 15 years before he retired. He came to America in the 70s on a special visa. They were inviting Indian physicians over. And he's been practicing for, I think, over 40 years, or he practiced for over 40 years.
So he's a staple of the community. A staple in the community, yeah.
He started his practice in the 80s, and it was a community practice, independent practice.
Yes. So initially he started his practice in Elmwood Park in, I can't remember the exact year. I want to say 82, maybe. And he's loved in the community. And when I joined the practice in 2002, we moved a little further west to a suburb called Melrose Park Pediatrics. I'm sorry, Melrose Park. And we opened Melrose Park Pediatrics and built it up over several years. But we brought over a lot of his patients from his Elmwood Park practice and grew from there.
Dr. Morales is a pediatrician in Quito, Ecuador, and podcaster. He obtained his doctorate in medicine from Pontificia Universidad Católica de Ecuador, and he did his pediatric residency at the same university. He has a master in pediatric emergency medicine from the CEU Central Herrera University in Spain. It's a pleasure to have you, Dr. Morales. We always start the show with, why did you become a pediatrician?
There's two answers for that. First one, why I became a doctor. When I was 10 years old, my mother gets cancer. And that was a terrible notice for a child of 10 years. So I thought that the only way that I could do something about that, it's being a doctor. So one of my dreams was do medicine to cure the cancer of my mother, or also get some help in another families, another child as me suffering because of that notice. So I decided my career about inspired in that event in my life. So after that, when I started my medicine career, I love it, but I don't have the chemistry between the specialties in adults and in elderly people. I don't have the chemistry with the patients. I don't get involved so much. But when I get involved in pediatrics, it was a dream. I love it. I love the environment. I love the pathologies. I love help children. I get a lot of chemistry with children because I love the same things that children love. I am fanatic of superheroes, comics, anime, and everything that the children love. So I think I am a child also, and I love a lot of things. In my bag, there's a Avengers poster. So I love a lot of things, and I think that if you are a superhero for your patient, the superheroes protect, the superheroes help, superheroes don't make damage. I love the superheroes for that thing, and I want to, in some way, become a superhero for my patients.
Dr. Irene obtained her medical degree from the University of Athens, Greece. She completed her resident training in pediatrics at Sophia Children's Hospital, University of Athens, Greece, with initial training at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and she's completed a second residency at the Odenburg Children's Hospital, affiliated with Drexel University in New Jersey. She's currently an independent pediatrician in Hawaii. And a little tidbit of interest, she was also, I think, on the Greek team synchronized swimming for the Olympics. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. Dr. Irene, we always start with asking you, why did you become a pediatrician?
Yes, I wish I could say that I've always wanted to be a pediatrician and I'm preparing my whole life for this career, but all my life I wanted to be a professional athlete. As long as I remember myself from 4 years old, that's all I wanted to do. And as you said, I was pretty early put into sports. I was one of those kids that were jumping on couches and somersaults. So wherever I found a beam, I would balance on it. So from 4 years old, I was in gymnastics and swimming, and my mom was a swim coach. And I remember watching the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, and there was a new event then. It was synchronized swimming. So I asked her to put me into that sport. And fast forward 15 years later, I was in the national Greek synchronized swimming team. I didn't make the Olympics. We were in world championships. That's all I did really in high school and a couple of years later. And we reached the 2000 pre-Olympic qualifying games, but did not qualify for 2 positions. So through sports, though, I always admired our physicians that were always on our team.
I had family that were doctors, my grandparents, my uncle, my godfather. But I never considered myself a good student. I always had good grades, but I never considered it was something that I could do. It was like one of those dreams that I wasn't sure I was able to do. And as I was deciding to retire from professional sports, I asked my uncle if I could shadow in a hospital with him and see that profession. I was in sports science and physical education. That was my pre-med studies at the University of Athens. And I really was fascinated always by anatomy, physiology, anything to help an athlete, how to enhance performance, how to stay healthy. And when I was shadowing in those hospitals, I found the same feeling I got at the swimming pool, that I could be disciplined and dedicated in order to get what I saw from other patients, like the thank you they were giving their doctors. Pediatrics came to me when I rotated. And then when I did my pediatrics rotation, I actually did a sub-internship at Hopkins in internal medicine. I was really not decided, and I was thinking about sports medicine. But once I did my pediatrics rotation, I got that feeling again that this is it. I felt that I could be dedicated so much to really helping kids feel better. Is there any profession better than that? I also had a role model. I studied in Europe and I did my residency there. But when I did my pediatrics rotation there, I saw that combination of the hospitalist pediatrician that also has a private practice, the same patients they knew, the families that they knew when they were admitted, it was their patients. And I just loved that idea that you could be part of that family and even if they're hospitalized, support them. So that for me was the ideal doing that combination job. I liked it so much that I did residency 2 times.
Sana, we always start the podcast with the same question. Why did you become a pediatrician?
Since I was a little child, I think I got like many short diseases, or I was weak in my health. So I was always in hospital or the ER. My parents were always taking me because, I have some rash or I have some kind of strange fever. I was getting all the time. And I was seeing around me many other children that were also sick. And I got very curious about that. And I think that because of the curiosity of seeing what happens to little children around me, as I was also sick, it led me to do this specialization in pediatrics.
Wow. So did you say you saw a lot of little children that were sick?
Sorry?
Thank you for listening. This has been a production of the Pediatric Lounge. On the show notes, you will find links to our co-host and other important notes, as well as a timetable of the topics discussed today. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast. Leave us a great review as it helps us greatly. In the meantime, we will see you next week. The Pediatric Lounge. The conversations are not intended as medical advice, and the opinions expressed are solely those of the host and the guest.